The question is that the motion be agreed to. I call the member for Jagga.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Well, access to affordable and quality childcare is certainly something that Australian families rightly expect, and it is something that I will continue to advocate in this place. And to hear members opposite allege that last year, during the pandemic, the Morrison Government backed the early education sector just could not be further from the truth. And I know this because I was in contact with early education providers, educators and parents throughout both of the lockdowns in Victoria last year, and the overwhelming message I received from them was one of uncertainty and one of feeling like they had been hung out to dry by this government. Because let's not forget, early childhood educators were the one sector that this government removed JobKeeper from early. And from a government that says, oh, it gets it now, it understands women. Let's remember that 96% of early educators are women. Removing JobKeeper payments from this sector, singling out this profession that predominantly employs women when this pandemic was already hitting them hardest, was just cruel. The early education sector was and is an essential service. It is these educators who are looking after our children. They are on the front lines. And during COVID and during the lockdowns, I spent a lot of time talking with them. And I must say, I'm so surprised to hear this motion praising the Morrison Government for its efforts with this sector in COVID, moved by a fellow member from Melbourne. Who was the member for Higgins talking to during lockdown? Certainly not the early childhood educators who'd had their payments ripped away from them. So it's really disappointing to hear that fellow members from Melbourne are so out of touch with their communities and certainly so out of touch with the need of these vital workers, our early childhood educators. In fact, I've just come from meeting with early childhood educators, and they are devastated about last night's budget, and they are worried about the future of their sector. Because the reality is that their pay and their conditions, the pay of this largely female workforce, is nowhere near enough to match their skill level and to match the demands that are put upon them. And there was nothing in this Morrison Government budget to fix that. Nothing to lift the wages of these vital workers, to lift the wages of early childhood educators. And that means too many of these workers will leave the sector. And that means that families lose out, and that means that our children lose out. So what did the government announce in this budget? Well, the first and perhaps the most important point to note is that what they did announce around childcare won't be implemented until July 2022. Australian families in my community, they're looking for support now. They need support now to reduce the unacceptably high cost of childcare fees. If we are genuine about supporting women to get back into the workforce as part of this COVID recovery, we need this relief from childcare fees now. And of course, the other big issue with what was announced by the Morrison Government is that it only benefits families with 2 children in childcare. This is a subsidy for some families and not for others. We know that families right across the country, I know that families right across my community are struggling with the cost of childcare, and that's whether they've got 2 children or 1 child. It is just so expensive. And you know, we've heard a lot about personal experiences during this debate. Well, I have 1 child in childcare. I have another child who will soon enter childcare. I have a lot of what I call swing conversations, and these are conversations you have in the playground while you're pushing your kid on the swing and you chat to the mum pushing their kid on the swing next to you. And I can tell you time and time again, those women pushing their child on the swing next to me explain to me how they can't afford to go back to work because the cost of childcare just doesn't make it worth it for them. And this package does nothing to change that. It means they won't be able to go back to work and know that they can securely pay for childcare for their children. It means they might not be able to pick up that extra couple of days. They will be the ones continuing to work part-time to pick up the extra care because this package does not solve the underlying problems of the cost of childcare in our country. Australian families want better. Families in my community, those mums I'm talking to on the swings, they want better. They want a well-funded early education sector. They want the workers in the sector to be paid as they should be. They want to know that when they send their kids to childcare, they can afford it, that the workers who are looking after them are supported, and that there's a secure future for everyone there. That's not what we're getting from this government. What we're getting is a sham.